Hello? Oh, you look familiar. Where have I seen... Oh, yes. You were here with me when I first arrived. So long ago. Must have been months? Or years even. Who knows? I remember we were reading some fool's journal. What was his name? Benedict or something? Who knows? It was true, though. It was all true. How could we have been so wrong? We thought we knew more than old Benedict called him mad. But we were wrong. We were so wrong. I wonder what happened to him. I've collected information on others trapped here like us. Perhaps you might see them too. If you do, tell them I sent you. Let me tell you of them. Dwight Fairfield. Dwight isn't the typical guy you think of when someone says survivor. He lacks that certain pizzazz, and without his glasses he's more or less blind. But as the sun sets and the woods come alive, Dwight clasps to his rat race life, making sure that he'll live to see another day, even though something unimaginable is after him. Dwight won't stop. He'll survive no matter what. So others spend hours being seen in high school. He spent hours becoming invisible and avoiding danger. And it doesn't matter if it's danger in the hallway or danger in the woods. Survival is key. As other employees panic when terror infects them, Dwight makes use of his disturbing teen experience. The tables have now turned, and now others need to follow Dwight's firm directions if they are to survive, as he knows how to disappear. Meg Thomas. Meg is one of those who is simply filled with energy, unfocused and uncontrollable energy that had to come out. As a kid, it came through rowdiness and rebellion. Someone had to focus Meg before something went terribly wrong. Fortunately, someone did. She started to run, maybe from something undefined that fueled her energy. So to run equaled life. But to run now might attract those beings that crave the pain of others. But as she runs from something, instead of towards it, she understands something. She understands that speed is not of the essence. It's reaching that finish line. Rather last but still breathing, she deludes whatever is out there as she glides through obstacles in fear, thus managing to stay alive. Jake Park. Jake's destiny was set, even inside his mother's womb. Heir to wealth, noble manners, and caretaker of the family reputation and legacy. During torture, it's not pain that breaks a man, it's immense pressure. And Jake couldn't handle any more pressure. Instead, he sought the opposite of fine dining and maids. He left the grid and ended up with the forest as closest neighbor. A self-made outsider, Jake understands nature. He's not there to tame something, rather him becoming feral. Remove the brutal killers that seek out blood to drain, and Jake would just feel at home. No Wi-Fi, no Fortune 500 companies, no father nor mother. Years away from modern life has given Jake a new feel for problems. Pain is just an obstacle that hinders you from getting fed. No matter what is hunting you, you need to stay one step ahead. Struggle, blend in, adapt. Just don't make it easy for others to erase you from the Earth's surface. Claudette Morel. Claudette is not the outgoing type. Her brilliance provides her with a social handicap, and she has fled the real world for chat rooms and forums. Botany and studies fill her life, and even though she yearns for something else, it won't come via a modem. Being thrown into a real-world situation can feel awkward and forced, but as she is used to shutting out the world, she suddenly finds hope in this unexplainable darkness that is slowly devouring her. A plant, a tree, a bush. Simple greenery that might save a life. She hides within and amongst them. Her knowledge and skills flourish as gruesomeness roams free around her. Nia Carlson. Nia grew up in the small town of Hijo in Sweden. She had a happy childhood, even though her mom and dad worked hard. As the opportunity to move to the U.S. became a reality, she started acting out. Her parents didn't really pick up on this as a reaction to their move. Nia was forced to leave her friends and life behind. She shied away from what her parents considered normal. Instead, she took refuge in skate parks, and her tag, Mashtix, was seen more or less all over her new hometown. Nia made a sport of tagging government buildings. Finally, Nia's parents became used to her disappearing for a few days on end. As she's nimble and almost cat-like, she's able to evade deadly dangers. Years on, skateboarding has proved worthy training, and keeping her head down, avoiding the fuzz can be applied to all dangers. The only question is whether she has some interest in not giving up. Laurie strode. You never know what really matters in life until you've realized it might end soon. Laurie is one of those who just wants a quiet life in the suburbs, hanging out with friends, family, and maybe going on a date or two. Laurie is a typical teenager. You could pass her on the streets and not think twice. She does her homework and is liked by her friends, teachers, and family. A simple night of babysitting turns into something that will forever change the course of her young life. A knife swooshing through the air, screams from afar, noises that play tricks with her mind. But not Laurie. She's made of something stronger, something that won't give up. Ace Visconti. Ace Visconti is one charming guy. From his sharp Italian looks, gray-streaked hair, and silver tongue, he can pass for an aging 50s movie star. His heart has always belonged to the cards. From his roots as a poor boy in Argentina, he gamed, scammed, seduced, and smooth-talked his way to a life of luxury as a high roller in the land of opportunity. Money has always had a way of slipping through his fingers, but Ace figures he can always win more. Eventually, he racked up too many debts with the wrong kind of people. But when they finally came to collect, Ace was nowhere to be found. No one knows who tipped him off or where he was gone, but everyone knows Ace Visconti can agree on one thing. He will survive, against all odds. William Bill Overbeck. It took 2 tours in Vietnam, a handful of medals, a kneeful of shrapnel, and an honorable discharge to get William Bill Overbeck to stop fighting and try to live a peaceful life. He hated it. After decades spent drifting aimlessly through dead-end jobs, Bill went in for a routine surgery and woke up to find the world he knew was gone. A plague was turning normal people into mindless killing machines. Naturally, the first thing he did was fight his way home and put on his uniform. Making his way through rural ghost towns and pitch-black forests, he found other survivors, and together they fled from the infected hordes. In the end, Bill sacrificed himself to ensure their safety. His body was never found. Bill was left for dead. No one knows that he still has the only thing he ever wanted, an enemy to fight. Feng Ming. Feng Ming was a young girl when she first picked up computer games, and she was instantly hooked. The brand new worlds enchanted her with colors, sounds, and explosions. A chance to be somewhere else, or someone else. Her parents saw no wrong with a few minutes in front of the screen, but as minutes turned into hours and sometimes days, they finally decided to pull the plug and force Feng Ming to put more efforts into her studies. She felt smothered by parents who refused to see the potential of a future in games, so she left home and spent her time in internet cafes and LAN parties where the old rules didn't apply. She spent hours playing, streaming, competing to rise to the top. Her parents became what she called holiday parents, as she never saw them outside the holidays, and she became the black sheep of a one-child family. In the gaming world, however, she finally found respect. Nicknamed the Shining Lion, she was invited to join a prestigious esports team and to live in their dorms, where she found a sanctuary free of the misconceptions and prejudice she had felt from her parents and the non-gaming world. Feng Ming pushed her limits to prove she was the best. Sleep was less important to her than training. At the top of her game, she filled stadiums with fans who adored her, but it couldn't last forever. The pressure to be the best grew stronger and stronger. She pushed herself too far, slept too little, and her performance began to slip. She started to lose. At night, she would stay up, tormented by the thoughts of disappointing her parents and her fans. She spiraled out of control and fell into a pattern of self-destruction. She started wandering the streets and visiting bars where no one knew of esports, waking up in places she didn't remember. One day she woke up somewhere completely different, in a never-ending nightmare. Feng Ming did not disappear as she learned more about the challenge she was up against. She realized this was what she had been training for her whole life. Now she was going to win. David King. The single child of a wealthy family, David King seemed destined for greatness while growing up in Manchester. He demonstrated serious potential in both sports and academics. And with his family connections, all doors were open to him. He could have succeeded at anything, if it weren't for his combative nature. David lived for the adrenaline rush of a good fight, and would go out of his way to get into one. His robustness and athletic abilities led him to rugby, where he could cut loose and really cause a ruckus. King excelled, and gained a reputation as a promising, if somewhat reckless rookie. His meteoric rise came to an abrupt end when he lost his temper and assaulted a referee, earning himself a lifetime ban from the league, and cutting short what most people assumed was going to be a long, successful career. King was unconcerned. Money was no issue, so he took it as an early retirement and focused on other fun things to do. Free from the constraints of a career and enabled by the wealth of his family, David King spent most of his time at the pub, drinking, watching games, and getting into fights. Some might say he was wasting his life away. Not many people knew that he was an occasional debt collector, or that he fought in clandestine bare-knuckle fight clubs. When David King stopped showing up at the pub, the few friends he had were not surprised. They figured he had finally picked a fight with someone stronger than he was, and in a way, they were right. Quinton Smith. When he heard that Nancy's mother had disappeared, Quinton Smith knew instantly that their success had been short-lived. Although their plan had seemed to work flawlessly, Freddy Krueger had beaten death yet again. But Quinton wasn't about to give up. It may take many attempts, but he vowed that somehow he would find a way to beat Freddy, once and for all. If he didn't, it would only be a matter of time before Freddy would win and Nancy was lost. Someone like Quinton never attracted attention in a library, no matter how strange the texts he requested. He devoured all the information he could find on shared dream worlds, lucid dreaming, and the methods to control the dream space. Forcing himself to stay awake via a steady diet of pills and energy drinks, he searched through dusty volumes, finding myths about the demon world that lived in dreams, trapping their victims in limbo and feeding off their terror. He worked quickly, as he knew that Freddy would soon be coming for him. It wasn't long before that moment arrived, and Freddy began appearing in his dreams. He stayed at the periphery at first, taunting Quinton, seemingly hoping to tire him out. Using all that he had learned, Quinton was able to see flaws in the dream, cracks where escape routes could be formed. He tested this skill carefully, not wanting to show his hand, hoping that it would give him some kind of advantage that he could use to defeat Freddy. Then one night he found himself in the familiar environment of Bedham Preschool. Freddy had tired of the taunting and had finally decided to gut him. Quinton ran through the school, his quick eyes scanning for something useful in the maze of rooms. He found a can of paint thinner and quickly formulated a plan. Once the trap was set, he waited, acting as the lure to draw Freddy into the right position. And there he was, claws scraping on metal as he closed in for the kill. Quinton allowed himself time to enjoy the surprise on Freddy's face as the corridor ignited, and then he was away, running through the building, heading for the exit that he knew existed. If he harried Freddy, weakening him, and then escaping the dream, surely that would defeat him over time. Before his eyes, the cracks in the dream closed, and his escape route was blocked. He was in Freddy's secret room again, and there was nowhere to run. As Freddy closed in, a broad, grim smile spreading across his ruined face, Quinton was consumed with the need to see this man finally obliterated. He wished it had been him, not his father, who threw the gas can that ended Krueger's life. And it had been him who cut Freddy's throat. Perhaps that desire would be enough. This was a realm of the mind, after all. He let it consume him, concentrating all his thoughts on wishing Freddy gone. His vision was obscured with roiling tendrils of fog, and when it cleared, he was somewhere else. In another dream. If so, it wasn't his. It felt cold and unfamiliar. A flickering drew his attention, and he realized he was by a campfire, and he wasn't alone. Other people were trapped here too, and they needed his help. David Tapp. David Tapp was one of the good guys. His determination to see killers brought to justice and their victims avenged had led him through a long and respected career. When he first saw the details of the Jigsaw case, it seemed like many others, more grisly and macabre, sure, but just another lunatic with a penchant for the overdramatic who would soon be behind bars. A stroke of insight brought Tapp and his partner, Detective Stephen Singh, to an abandoned mannequin factory, where they discovered Jigsaw's lair. They apprehended the man, but he managed to escape before being unmasked, slashing Tapp's throat as he did so, leaving his partner. Singh was in pursuit, but fell victim to a booby trap. Tapp had failed to go by the book, and on this one occasion, entering the lair without a warrant, and it had resulted in the detective's death. He was discharged from the force, and left with a ruined throat and crippling guilt. He channeled that guilt into an obsession. He would find the killer, stop the murders, vindicate himself, and avenge his friends and colleagues. Following the evidence trail brought him to Dr. Lawrence Gordon, and he staked out the doctor's apartment, sure that he would find some evidence of guilt. Then he saw a stranger at Gordon's window and heard gunshots. Tapp confronted him, and the man fled, with the pursuit leading to an industrial building. Tapp caught up with him. A fight that he could easily have won in his younger days ended with Tapp taking a bullet to the chest. Slumping to the floor, he only saw his failure. He had failed his partner and the other victims. Whoever this killer was, Tapp had been unable to stop him. More would die, and it would be his fault. He let the rage and guilt consume him and closed his eyes for the final time. Beneath him, the concrete floor softened. He dug his fingers into the ground, feeling dirt and leaves. Where his chest had been wet with blood, the shirt was now dry and the pain gone. His eyes opened into a darkened sky and the jagged, searching fingers of branches. Screams echoed through the forest, and a new determination filled him. His mind was clear for the first time in months. Victims needed to be avenged, killers thwarted. He didn't know what this place was, but he was still a cop, and he would always be. He had a job to do.